Hey everyone, welcome back to First Line Therapy. We're going to jump right on into our next information that we're going to discuss today. And today what we're going to talk about is stress. So you guys know that you've heard me talk about First Line Therapy. It's got three main concepts to it. One is nutrition, the other is physical activity, and the third is stress. And that's because they are all as equally important to each other for your overall health. You know that people are beings that have bodies, you have hearts and minds and spirits, and all of that contributes to your health and affect each other. So we cannot treat a physical problem that you have unwellness in your mental health or your emotional or spiritual health. So all of those things are important health and health outcomes. So today we're going to concentrate a little bit on the stress management piece. So stress definitely has not only the psychological impacts that we think of. We know that when you get stressed, you experience, some mental anguish, you have some anxiety, maybe over time it can make you a little bit blue and can affect your mood. That's kind of what stress affects your mental health. But stress has a huge impact on your physical health. We see that borne out more and more in literature over time. So there's, not just the psychological, but also the physical impact of stress is huge. And so it needs to be addressed. 43% of all adults suffer adverse effects due to stress. That's not 43% of people are stressed out. 43% of people, we see the adverse outcomes of stress. So 75% of medical visits can be related to stress in some way. And that's in the form of, diseases that you might have that are altered by stress or made worse by stress. So let's talk about some specific diseases that, it's very easy to make that link. So on heart disease, we always say, oh, you gave me a heart attack. If someone is scared or frightened or hurt. I have a little bit of truth to that. Stress has a huge, especially chronic stress, has a big impact on heart disease, making it worse, and the ill outcomes from it, like heart attacks and strokes, that is totally related to stress. Diabetes, anybody who is diabetic with you all has experienced your sugar going up in a time of stress. That's totally a hormonal body responding to stress thing. Osteoporosis can be related to stress. Definitely GI problems, digestion, chronic diarrhea, gas, stomach pain, all of these are related to stress. There's actually a form of irritable bowel syndrome that is stress-induced. So being overweight, we find that with chronic stress, people tend to weigh more. Cancers, that's huge. The outcomes for cancers are definitely related to your amount of life stress. And of course, the anxiety and depression diagnosis, we understand that relationship to stress. So we're going to talk about how stress affects us physically and behaviorally, a little bit about short-term stress and long-term stress, and we're going to discuss a few ideas about how to manage it. Okay, so we don't want to leave what to do with your stress now that you've learned that. So stress is a part of our normal everyday life. Everyone experiences stress at some point in time. So it's not necessarily the absence of stress here. It's more about how you're going to cope with it, because everybody's going to experience a stressor. So one thing that happens in our bodies when we experience stress is the fight or flight response. You guys have heard of fight or flight probably. You've probably had an episode where maybe you were driving and someone pulled out in front of you really quickly and you had to slam on the brakes or get out of dodge, and you felt it. You felt that release of adrenaline. You felt that release. You felt your heart rate go up. You felt your face flush. You felt your heart pounding. Your body was ready to respond. Okay, that's that fight or flight response that happens when you are acutely stressed. So that's short-term stress. Chronic stress is a little bit different, but similar in some ways. So when we experience chronic stress, our adrenal glands are organs that sit right atop of our kidneys. Those are your stress glands. The stress hormone is cortisol. You guys might remember seeing those commercials on TV. Maybe you haven't, maybe you do, where they talked about stress raises cortisol. Cortisol increases belly fat. Reliquor helps reduce belly fat. You know, you may have an example that I can give you about the idea of cortisol being a hormone that's released in response to stress, chronic stress, and then how it affects our weight. So, you know, you can think of it also like maybe a gazelle. You know, a gazelle sees the lion, and the lion stresses the gazelle. The gazelle experiences that fight or flight response. And what do? They run. They run off all that stress hormone, right? But what happens to us is that we experience stressors, and so we would be the gazelle in this situation. And it might not be a lion, but it might be an issue in our family that's not resolved, or it might be a loss of a job, or it might be a stressful situation with your finances, or it might be a fight that you had with your spouse. All these little sources of stress, they happen in our bodies. You know, those are our lions chasing us, or our lions that scare us. And then our adrenal glands release that cortisol. And then if we were gazelles, we would be running physically. We would be running off that hormone. And when you run, you need more blood sugar to your muscles to run. You need more energy in your body to be able to run. But we don't run. We don't run from the things that scare us now. We're not running around all day, every day. We're just kind of living our lives. So then that stress hormone tells our bodies, you're going to need a lot of energy. You're going to need to hold on to all those nutrients that are coming in. You're going to need to make use of all those, that blood glucose that's coming in. But then we don't have to run anywhere. So then our blood sugars go up, and we didn't really need to use it because that's not the way that we have to respond to stress in the day and age that we live in. So then our blood sugar is too high because we're not using it up in physical activity to have to fight or to have to run. So then it gets stored because it's excess energy, and that's how you put on weight in response to chronic stress. So your hypothalamus, that's in your brain, that releases a stimulating hormone to your pituitary, and then further down the line to your adrenal glands. Those are the ones that I was telling you sit atop your kidneys, and they release gonadotropins, catecholamines, epinephrines, noradrenaline, and then large amounts of cortisol are released. That's the predominant one. So the long-term effects of chronic elevations of cortisol have a negative health consequence. So this is kind of what I'm talking about, I kind of gave in that scenario about the gazelle and the lion, and how we're not gazelles having to run away from our lions anymore. We just kind of sit and think. You know, that's how we sit and we talk and we think. That's the way that we have to deal with our lions. We don't run off all of that cortisol, all that extra fuel that our body was needing. So that's the adaptation syndrome. You adapt for a longer term need, and then you end up exhausted because your adrenal glands are so tired of pumping out that stress hormone that we don't really respond to that stress hormone anymore, and it's just out there, it's just raising our blood sugar, but we're not feeling that rush of energy anymore. So cortisol increases your blood sugar, and then that, of course, becomes weight gain. It converts proteins to blood sugar, and then actually, because it's having to convert proteins to blood sugar, you lose your protein that would have been building your muscles because you think you're going to need quick energy. So the problem is with cortisol is that you are not getting or maintaining the muscle mass that you need because your body thinks you're going to need all that blood sugar, but then you don't need it, so it becomes fat. So there's, of course, good stressors and bad stressors. You guys might have heard it talking about eustress. Those are things that are, normal, healthy responses to stress. So we want to focus on good, healthy coping mechanisms for stress. There's good coping mechanisms and there's mechanisms. Let's talk about some positive management tools for stress. So you might technique is meditation. And, that can sound kind of like, that's a little bit kind of hippy-dippy. Maybe that's a little bit weird. But, this idea of meditation has been across many cultures for many years. So it's just the takeaway idea that you might devote some time to your thoughts, devote some time to relaxing on purpose. Maybe you do that through journaling. Maybe you do that through taking a walk in a garden or going on a hike. Something that you enjoy that helps you to relax, something you can focus on for a while, or an amount of time that you can focus on yourself for a while. Lifestyle strategies, those might be things in your lifestyle like, I'm not going to work overtime anymore because that stresses me out. Or, I really need to make sure that I exercise every day. That's going to be our next tip that we hit is exercise. Exercise is that gazelle running away, using up all that blood sugar. When you're stressed out, you need to exercise. You need to make use of all that blood sugar. All of that energy that your body thinks it's going to need stressor. So if you actually do run a little bit like a gazelle, you will use up some of that and maybe not have to turn it into stored energy, which is fat. Make sure you get good sleep. There's actually some new information coming out in research about dementia and Alzheimer's and how much sleep you have gotten in your lifetime. So devote the energy to making sure you have good hygiene habits. Those are things like turning off any screen, TV, cell phone, at least an hour or two before bed, going to bed and getting up at the same time every day, doing the same routine before you go to bed to signal to your body that it's time to go to sleep. Think about all those things because it is important that you get your rest that you need. And also making sure that you're getting in good nutrition. So, making sure you're eating good things that your body is trying to use up. Some more relaxation techniques are going to be diaphragmatic breathing. I'll just run through really quickly. This is called square breathing. So square breathing is a good tool that you can use in the moment of like maybe you feel on the verge of a panic attack, or maybe you can tell that you're stressed out. Something you can do is called square breathing. And that means that you're going to inhale, counting to 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold your breath in, counting to 4, letting your breath, and then leaving your breath out, counting to 4. So it would go something like this. I'm going to be counting in my head, but imagine I'm counting to 4 at every side of the square. So it's like inhale, 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold my breath, 1, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 1, 2, 3, 4, and leave that breath out, 1, 2, 3, 4. So if you're stressed out, when you start doing it, it's going to feel like you're having to count really fast. You're going to be counting to 4 really fast. It's going to be like 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. That's okay. Just try to breathe in a square, concentrating and thinking about breathing through a square. And then over time, over several breaths, you'll notice you'll be able to count slower. And you'll be able to slow down your breathing and calm yourself down. If that's too complicated, that's no problem. Just take some deep breaths. Just inhale through your nose, your mouth. even just a few of those every day can make a big difference. All right? Another one is called progressive relaxation. Progressive relaxation is where you would get into a comfortable position in a chair or in your bed. Maybe this can help you fall asleep. And you'll go through your whole body, either head to toe or toe to head, thinking about a body section and intentionally relaxing that section of your body. So, for example, I might be laying down to go to sleep. So I'm going to spend a few deep breaths thinking about the muscles of my forehead and my face. My forehead feels really tight. I've had a stressful day today. I'm going to spend a few deep breaths concentrating on relaxing my forehead and my face muscles. Okay, good. Now I'm going to concentrate moving on to my neck. You know, I can feel that I have some tension in my neck. I'm going to spend 2 or 3 deep breaths relaxing the tension of the muscles in my neck. And then I'm going to move to my shoulders and do the same. And then to my stomach and do the same. And then to my seat and do the same. And then upper legs and lower legs and feet, if that makes sense. You guys can let me know if I need to clarify any of these anymore. But that's a progressing from head to toe or toe to head, intentionally relaxing the muscles of that body section, however that works best for you. Meditation, you know, you can meditate on what you think. You can meditate on some scripture that you've read. You can meditate on something that you're thankful for, spending time giving some intentional thought to things that bring you peace. And doing lots of research behind yoga, getting our minds in touch with our bodies and being aware of the things in our mind, devoting some time to that. So this is more about the diaphragmatic breathing that I've kind of discussed. This is another example: inhaling, exhaling, counting to 4. That's a tool you can use. Progressive relaxation I discussed and went through. Meditation the same. And yoga the same. So on into lifestyle strategies. Prioritize your time. You know, if something is not high on your priorities list, when you think about it and give it some conscious thought, but it's out alive, that might be one to nix. Trying to be more organized about your time management. Delegate what you can. No one person can do everything that there needs to be done, okay? So reach out for help. We are family-oriented beings. You know, we are meant to need to depend and live alongside other people. So reach out for help when you need it. Let go of perfectionism. Exercise, vital part of stress management. So moderate, low intensity exercise helps balance cortisol. So that's good news. Run right now, or if you can't, you know, bike for an hour, you know, if you're not up to that level of physical activity, even some low intensity exercise can help you balance cortisol. And pick something you enjoy for exercise. That's really important. Get adequate rest. This idea about sleep deprivation causing accelerated aging, we've had some more literature develop on that recently. Limit caffeine, of course. You know, don't be drinking caffeine in the afternoon. If you have difficulty sleeping, don't drink or consume a lot of caffeine if you're prone to being anxious or feeling restless. Limit your alcohol intake. This is kind of a yo-yo thing. You might feel a little bit stressed out if you drink some, but in the long run, you're going to feel more stressed out. You won't sleep well, that kind of idea. And make sure you're eating. Just the general idea of take care of yourself, okay? So key nutrients for stress. These are some tools that you might want to incorporate that actually help. These would be vitamins and supplements. I'm actually going to leave those recommendations up to your primary care provider, whoever that might be, your doctor, nurse practitioner, physician's assistant. But you're welcome to kind of make a note of these few things and ask them if that's something you should incorporate into your routine. So successful stress management is going to help us reduce the risk of your chronic diseases, help control your weight, and improve your overall quality of life and help you get enjoyment out of life. So that's it for today. That's some real fast and furious information on stress management. I could spend a lot of time talking about stress management, but I just want to leave you emphasizing how important managing your stress is on your physical health and your mental health, and also the idea that you can't be a whole well being in any area if all the areas are not well. So you cannot be well physically if your emotional self or spiritual self or mental self is not well. So it's important for so many things to manage your stress. Your stress affects your physical health, and your physical health affects your stress. So let's just work on them all together, okay? So thank you so much for listening. I look forward to finding out if you have any questions you'd like to share, and I hope you have a great week. Thank you, guys.